Welcome to the National Artificial Intelligence Association AI on Capitol Hill series, which features bipartisan conversations with members of Congress on responsible and innovative AI policy. My name is Caleb Max, and I'm the president and CEO. And today, of course, we are not on Capitol Hill. We are in Leesburg, Virginia, in the district office of Congressman Subramanyam. Very honored to be here. And we are here because, of course, in August, it's recess, so the Hill's a pretty empty place this time of year. We are about 45 minutes from Washington, D.C., and this district is special to me for multiple reasons. One, because this is where I live. This is my home, Loudoun County, Virginia. So you are my congressman. But secondly, because my grandfather represented this district for a long time, and so our viewers may not know that. He was a member for Congress from the 10th District, and your chief of staff in there told me these seats were in his office. So following in the footsteps in some sense here in these seats. So at any rate, with that, I want to give a quick background. You serve on the House Science, Space, and Technology Committee, as well as multiple other committees. You were widely known for your time in the Obama administration as a tech policy advisor from 2015 to 17, which, of course, now with AI, that's a very hot topic. You were in the House of Delegates here in the State Senate. Is there anything else you'd like folks to know about your background?
Oh, well, I got the short straw. So I'm on the ethics committee too in Congress, but I'm on the oversight committee and I'm the ranking member for military and foreign affairs. And I'm also on some of the modernization subcommittees too. And I know that's work that your grandfather did, as well as many of my predecessors. We have a lot of federal workers and contractors here who have great ideas on how to make government better, more efficient, because they live it every day. And so it's been great to continue sort of that lineage in the 10th district of champions of federal workers and contractors.
Yeah, you have a lot of workers and contractors here in the 10th district, so oversight's a very important one. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, too, with how much they're doing in AI.
Yeah.
So first, to go to your time in the Obama administration, at the time, and of course, this is, about, I guess, almost 10 years now, between 5 and 10 years ago, did you see the explosion of AI then from a policy standpoint? Was AI something that came up in conversations then?
Absolutely. Most of us did. What we didn't see was how it would develop. And so with a lot of things, you think of it as, linear and steady progress. But on technology, and particularly on AI, it's sort of a plateau and then a huge jump, and then a plateau and a huge jump. And so we were at a time where things had plateaued a little bit. There was definitely some gadgets that were purporting to be AI, but we were talking about AI as basically data analyzed in a much more efficient way and spitting out things in a much faster way, right? And so when we were thinking about that and thinking about AI, we were thinking about what is the implications if this becomes bigger, and if this gets to a point where the AI is able to do these things much more quickly than a human, much more quickly than any computing we have right now. And what would that mean for the workforce? And so we did reports on the workforce. So what would that mean for the economy as we know it? What would that mean for national security? What if the AI can break encryption, right? What is that going to mean for our security systems? And so we were starting to talk about those things. And we even, approached Congress at times and said, what can we do about this, right? But because it was so theoretical, I don't think the general public or Congress felt a sense of urgency. And at that time, the big thing was encryption, and whether, we should allow backdoors for the federal government agencies to get at the bad guys, right? Or whether, we should protect it and allow companies to fully encrypt data and fully encrypt the phones, right? And so now we're in a place where there's been a huge jump, right? And so I look back at a few of those papers, and they were very spot on as to what could happen, what the implications could be. My problem sometimes with Congress and with our governing is that we can anticipate problems, but it just sounds alarmist. And It doesn't seem like there's a sense of urgency to solve it or to plan ahead. And sometimes we get it wrong. So one thing we got wrong was we said, okay, we need to tell kids that the future of jobs might involve a tech component. And so get really good at tech, like learn how to code. And now the kids that were learning how to code for the past decade or two don't have jobs available to them because the AI is coding in many cases, or they want more advanced coders. They want more advanced software engineers. So you need 5 years of experience to be able to work with these tools now. And so we got some of it wrong, but a lot of it was right. And now I'm in Congress, and now everyone understands the problem, but we're still not doing enough. And so I see it as my job to get us to do something now, get us to act upon the sense of urgency that has finally hit the public.
Yeah. And it actually leads me very well to the next question, which is a sort of a national AI policy framework. Now that we have had this major leap forward, as you mentioned, we're seeing the workforce consequences. We really, whether it's super intelligence or not, that can be debated, but certainly it's in the hands of every American. It's affecting the economy. What would your kind of opinion be on a national AI policy framework? Is this something that the state should be doing state by state? And then if you might, the Trump administration has put out national AI legislative framework that they released and sort of their ideas. Is there anything there that you think you agree with and is working, or where can we improve?
Yeah, a national framework would be better because it's much better to have one standard than 50 different standards. Yeah. I think of a gentleman I met yesterday at an event. He has a travel agency, but now he's integrating AI into it so it can match you with based on your personality, where you should go in the world and what you should do. Right? I need this, yeah. And he's got an AI tool. He said, "I don't use ChatGPT. I don't use anything else, any Anthropic products. I use my own product that I built in-house." Imagine him having to go and do 50 state compliance to be able to grow his product across states, right? Imagine him having to go through the checklists of regulations the same way Google would, the same way Anthropic would. It seems unfair to me. And ideally, there's just one standard. But Congress needs to do something. They need to come up with a standard, and a standard that protects people and provides the right guardrails. I've talked to folks in industry. They agree that we should have standards, and they agree that there should be guardrails. And right now, they're self-imposed. And the concern I have with the administration's actions is that they actually started out with the first draft of the EO that was put out. There were some pretty good standards, and there were some pretty good ideas when it came to trying to regulate frontier models for AI. But then they rolled that back. I think they were afraid of some of the alarmists in industry saying that you shouldn't do this. It's going to squash innovation. I don't think that's true. I think the innovation is happening, and there's a lot of money being put into that innovation. It's a gold rush right now. I think what would be better is if we have really clear standards so that industry can follow them and people know and feel like they can trust the AI that's coming out. And so, I've worked with Democrats and Republicans to come up with some legislation that could pass, right? There's the ideal legislation that I have in mind, but I want to pass something. And so we're starting with frontier AI models, working with Trahan from Massachusetts and Obernolte from California. And we're just putting this out. It's not perfect and it still needs work. But at least it's like a standard where people can trust that this AI isn't going to run rampant and destroy our world as we know it, right? And so at least, let's put some basic guardrails in place. It doesn't stop the states from, regulating, discrimination in AI models or, other sort of issues that are still very important. Mm-hmm. But I think of making sure that when there's a new AI model that could, shake things up and really hurt people, if not checked, we need to make sure it goes through a process and a mandatory process.
Yeah. Speaking of Congressman Obernolte and the committee, you've worked on introduced the Data Infrastructure Energy Measurement Standards Act. You co-sponsored his framework bill with Trahan, right? I believe yes. You're one of the early co-sponsors of that, which we endorsed that bill, so we're very, very happy about that. Do you see more bipartisan bills coming out of the House Science and Technology Committee in the future? And sort of, is there, areas where both parties can work together to pass these standards?
I sure hope so. We better, because that's our job in Congress, is when there's an issue that could, change our country as we know it, and change our economy as we know it. We have to make sure that people are protected and that there are clear standards for our industry. And so in this case, there's a couple moving pieces, right? There's these frontier models that could do a lot of damage. We need to make sure they go through a sound process. There's safety for kids and people generally, right? And so we've got bills like COSA out there, and the Senate and House are negotiating that, but we need to get that right and get it done. And then there's the data center piece. If our district were a country, it would actually be third or fourth in the world as far as number of data centers. Just this district. And anywhere from 40 to 70% of the internet goes through this district at a given time. And so we have a lot of data centers here. And so I know what's coming to other districts. A lot of people come to me and say, what do you think of these data centers? And at first it was like, how do I get them? Right. And I was like, you can take some of mine. But now, if you could airlift a data center and put it in Michigan, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I'm starting to tell my colleagues that you need to get the power part right, you need to get the water right, you need to get the land use right and the zoning right, and make sure that the community, not just the local government, but the community is bought in to this idea. It can give you guys a lot of local government revenue, for instance, for the schools, right? It's very attractive. So from a local government perspective, you'd love to have data centers, but then you're not seeing the next 5 to 10 years, which is the power needs that'll come up, the water impact, the impact on people's utility bills, who's paying for this power, right? And so we need to get all of that right too. Unfortunately, we were a little late on trying to address those issues. I'm starting to now see local and state government kind of push on this and try to get it right. But we're building 200 data centers in Loudoun County, and so it's a little late now, but it's never too late to try to fix those issues.
I was saying, in some sense, you were like the data center congressman, right? I mean, with what you said about, I remember this is probably 5 or 6 years ago now, but actually probably when she was still in Congress, but Congressman Comstock at a campaign speech was at the time, and this was before AI really became a hot button issue. It was basically saying how she was the person that brought all these things here, and it was a great accomplishment of hers. And now we kind of see these data centers as very hot button political, where you don't want to be maybe associated.
But what's interesting is when she was saying that, I was telling her, hey, I just worked at the White House on AI. Right. We're not thinking about all the power lines we'll have to build. We're not thinking about how a data center next to a community is going to impact that community. Mm-hmm. And we certainly aren't thinking about how the data center's power needs will impact people's utility bills. Right. And so I was trying to caution people then. Again, we got some stuff right 10 years ago. Not everything, but a lot of stuff right.
Well, so what is Congress's role in data centers? I mean, should there be a national standard of ratepayer protection and this sort of thing that the administration's proposed, or what is sort of the answer? Because I really do think this is another bipartisan issue. There's sort of bipartisan hate for data centers, as well as the people who like them. There's bipartisan. So what's the answer for Congress? Where does Congress fall in this?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One, we have to work with states to make sure that people are not paying for data center infrastructure through their power bills. That's the start. It's doubling our power bills here in Virginia. And so start there, and then make sure that we're citing these data centers in a way that makes sense. And so we're putting them all right now in Virginia, basically. And then we're going to other places, and we're, plopping them in places that don't make a lot of sense. And so, for instance, I talked to someone from Alaska who said, I've got a lot of power here that's not used. I've got a lot of land here that's not used. It might actually be a good place to put data centers, easier to cool here. And so just as an example, why not look into that, right? Right. I'm not saying I don't know anything about Alaska where he wants to put them, but I'm saying that might be a better idea than putting another 100 in the same place. Yeah. And we have to make sure that the power infrastructure is secure. And from a national security perspective, you're seeing now that in these wars, they're going after data centers. They used to go after, power infrastructure, military targets. If you go after the data centers, those data centers are just as valuable, if not more valuable, than the other targets now. And so we have to make sure we have a plan to protect the data centers and the communities around them, like our community, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Our backyard. Yeah.
I think we should be undergrounding more power lines, and then we should be working with the data centers on trying to pay for that, so the community doesn't have to pay for it. I think that's the more secure way to do it, and we can get some DoD money to help with that. That would be great. right? Yeah. And then the small bill that you're talking about, that's to make sure that communities know the impact. So how much power are they actually using? How much water are they actually using? We actually don't have standardized measurements for that. And so that's an easy way is the community should know the impact of them when they come in so that they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, I agree. The Democrats are likely going to be taking the House this fall, which
knock on wood somewhere for
yeah,
me.
Exactly right. And what do you think we can expect to see from a Democrat AI policy agenda? Any major changes or things that you're looking forward to pushing, or is it still going to be a lot of bipartisanship?
Sure. When it comes to AI, I want to make sure we're passing bills and that it gets signed into law. Yeah. And so certainly we're going to have a starting position that's a little more aggressive than a Republican majority. I think our new members of Congress have come into an environment where they probably won based on criticizing AI and data centers, right? So we'll have to understand that dynamic going in. To me, I just want to pass something good. Right. And if that means that we have to get a little more aggressive than what we have right now, then so be it. And we need something that will be signed by the president too, and will pass the Senate. And so that is not easy. It's not easy to pass bills. There's 1,000 ways to kill a bill. There's only one way to pass the bill, right? And so that's my goal is let's get something done and let's get it done quickly. And so whether it's data centers, so whether it's, AI frontier models or safety, we have to make sure we move forward. I do think if there's a Democratic majority in the House and there's a Republican majority in the Senate and a Republican president, that makes it more difficult to pass something. I also think we may not be able to wait another 2 years on this issue. We need to do this in the next 6 months. And I'm hoping we can get something done, at least on the most important issues by the end of the year. Okay.
As we wrap up, I always like to ask this question to people on, and I get lots of wide-ranging answers. Favorite AI tool or a way you use AI that is different or exciting?
Yeah, I'm in a couple of fantasy football leagues, and AI is a great way. It's like, should I do this trade? It just got offered to me. Really? And so I use Gemini. And so Gemini knows my roster. Really? They know the roster. You can just feed the rosters of all my opponents in there, and then you can ask Gemini. But the problem with Gemini, and really with any AI tool, is it's not always. You got to fact check them. Right. So for instance, they're like, oh yeah, this guy is great. He plays for the Rams. It's like, no, he plays for the Ravens now. And that was a couple of years ago. So you have to still check and have a human with that AI buddy.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I've not heard that one. Overalty told me he used it to change an outlet in his house. And so I get a very wide range of different things there. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for your leadership in this space. And yeah, this is really, every time I do an interview about data centers, it's so funny how often they use Loudoun County as the example. They'll say, well,
here we are.
Right. So I always say, I always give my policy answer. And then I say, and look, I'm somebody who has these in my backyard. And so I feel like I experience some of what I see around the country when people say, I don't want them here. So at any rate, looking forward to continuing to work with your office, and thank you for all you're doing in this space. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Congressman.